Today on Spectrum, we visit with a theatrical set designer who talks about creativity. We join a rehearsal and performance of the Hawaii Ecumenical Chorale as they prepare for a Bach festival. But first, we join Mary Pritchard and discover what forms tapa may take in the Samoan culture. Tapa is an art form made from trees, nuts, and roots. These enduring materials have provided Polynesian cultures with a fabric that has been stretched, beaten, rubbed, painted, worn, mounted, and given as a medium of exchange. Once common to all of Polynesia, until recently, this ancestral tradition of bark cloth art has only been maintained in Fiji, Tonga, and Samoa. It was through Samoan influence that tapa making was revived in Hawaii. As one of the oldest art forms in the Samoan culture, examples of their tapa, called siapo, were present at a Samoan festival in Honolulu. Here, music, dance, and culture were brought from across the miles. Several citizens of American Samoa arrived to display their region's art and crafts. Samoans living in Hawaii were present to share in a day reminiscent of their origins. Also present was Samoa's leading lady in the art of tapa making, Mary Pritchard.
Most people think that the word tapa is Samoan, or rather the name for the article, but it is not. Siapo is the Samoan word. Tapa, as I have learned it, is more or less a Marquesan word.
The bark cloth of siapo comes from the paper mulberry plant, but supply is scarce.
There's not enough people to do their bark, their cloth now. It's only over in Western Samoa and Hawaii where the bark is being prepared, and that's where I go to buy all my materials.
This material consists of the inner bark, or bast, of the tree which is processed and beaten into a cloth. The oldest method of decoration is called siapo tasina. Using a design tablet of carved wood soaked in brown stain, the bark cloth is stretched upon it and rubbed until the design has soaked through. Bark cloth tears easily along its length. Therefore, it is wrapped upon the tablet both lengthwise and widthwise for bonded strength. Young bark cloth has two sides. The smooth side goes on the bottom, directly touching the stain and the carving.
You always have to look for the right and the wrong side. The right side is smooth and the other side has fuzz. But when it gets too old, then it's fuzzy on both sides.
Red clay is grated over the cloth and rubbed in to further highlight the design of the natural brown dye. This dye, also made from tree bark, gives siapo a rare longevity.
I have pieces that I'm not an anthropologist or someone that you know, dissect with microscopes, you know, to look into the fiber or the material. But I have pieces that I feel that, oh, they're, well, way, way over 100 years old, maybe 200 years old, who knows? And it still shows the dye, especially the brown dye, which is our most important one for tapa making, is still shiny.
Arrowroot starch, a natural adhesive, is used to cement together layers of cloth as well as to patch holes.
My first one that I attempted, you know, when I said, I'm going to make me a tapa, a siapo. So I go and I put it on, you know, and I used the starch. So I worked, but I had to use a ruler and a pencil, you know, measure everything out just right. Followed it. So I said, oh, nice. I started to peel it off. I couldn't do it. And I said, oh my gosh. Finally, I had to, you know, it was torn off. Well, yeah, they laughed and called me Valea, stupid. I said, well, yeah, but you didn't tell me that. See, because when they start coming in to do their work together in this house, you see, their boards are already covered. I never saw one being covered. And I didn't think of asking, well, how do you put it on the board?
Freehand siapo art is very satisfying to one's design instincts. Called siapu bamanu, it allows dyes to be painted directly onto the bark cloth.
The colorful siapo of today, the idea was born out of the ladies looking up at the beautiful stained glass windows and the circles and the squares and the divisions.
Within the broad division lines, inspired by stained glass windows, early Samoan siapo makers experimented with patterns derived from trocus shells, the points of the pandanus bloom, and the pandanus leaves, as well as the leaf from the breadfruit tree. Within a single panel, a design may go through gradual steps of elaborate complexity. Mary Pritchard learned the finer points of this art from the old and experienced Samoan villagers.
Those were my companions, you know, were the old people. I didn't go around with young people because I was asking questions. I was interested in many things, trees, the ocean, fish. And that's how I learn, and that's how I get to meet up all these people that come to study things in Samoa. With the present crowd, I'm not a loner. But I get more company.
When company comes to visit Mary Pritchard at her home in Pago Pago, they might find her hard at work on a piece of siapo. Such as this one, composed as a legacy for her grandchildren. This siapo was her gift to the governor of American Samoa. But Mary Pritchard worries that Samoan interest in native siapo is lagging.
To be honest, that is the one part that I am very sad about, because in my own heart, I really believe my people, perhaps there might be a few, but as far as up to now, I see no interest as far as American Samoa is concerned. There's none. They're not making it. We're the only ones. Not even the preparation of the bark. Nothing, no one.
But many foreign students have come from afar to learn the art of siapo from Mary Pritchard, nearly all of whom receive what she teaches.
I had one failure. This lady came up, you know, she wanted to learn how to do the tapa, all right? The only thing she did was to be able to cover her boards. Then comes time to start designing. She comes out with the others and everybody's busy. And I keep watching. I said, what's the matter? Oh, I'll do it. She was a lady about early 50s or middle 50s. And when it's time for all of them to go home, she didn't even put a dot. And then they come back again, you know, and she comes. And again she goes home, no. I said, what's the matter? Just draw. Well, when are you going to begin? You know, she said, oh, I don't want, no, you're not going to ruin it. If you ruin it, we'll recover it. No problem there. Then I go about, you know. They go home, she didn't do any work. And I felt myself just, you know, but I didn't say anything to her. And I said, damn it, what's the matter with the woman? And she ended up, she didn't come up again, but she sent me a check for $15, and she didn't even put a dot in the paper. I said to one of those, take this. Oh, I used another word, I don't want to say it. I said, take this back to her and say thank you very much. This is the first time I've had a failure in anybody not even scratching the board. So that was, I've seen kids even, while I'm talking before I know, I say, hey, wait a minute, wait. Shh. Kids. So there you go.
The artistic quickness of children is a treat for Mary Pritchard, particularly when she sees it in her own family.
This is my great-grandson's. He did all the black in one evening. And then he let it go. And I think I said, when are you going to color your board, Bucky? I'll do it now. I said, okay, sit down. And he did it that evening. One can do a siapo in 2 or 3 hours from the first lesson. Anyone can do it.
I mean, it's the most wonderful kind of vocation because so much of it is like avocation. So much of it is simply fun, doing things, puttering, improvising, playing. And that's really what theater is about. It is plays, after all.
In his 22 years as the resident scene designer for the University of Hawaii Drama Department, Richard Mason abhors the routine, the repetitive, and the cliched.
I've always found it fascinating to investigate, not to be satisfied with just a sort of humdrum, routine, a rut, but to move outward, to sightsee on your own, to go off into the byways and alleys off the side, off the main drag, to see what you can discover.
The very nature of theater demands curiosity, creativity, and flexibility.
Well, theater is to a great extent, a sort of collection of one-shot possibilities. You don't do the same thing every time you work on shows, in a career in the theater.
The scene designer creates the environment in which a play is presented. The designer uses the language of colors, textures, materials, shapes, and lines to set the mood, even to establish a metaphor for the production. Using the model of the 1983 production of Romeo and Juliet, Mason describes the design elements employed to create a metaphor of conflict.
Terry Knapp, who directed it, wanted large spaces for people to rush in, to fight, to to dance. The big ballroom scene took up practically the whole stage. And you have a lot of strong, long diagonals that make a lot of activity possible. And of course, the activity is a metaphor for the kind of feelings, the rebelliousness of the society and of the characters in the play. And here comes...
As a professor of drama, Mason has taught his students not only the craft of scene design, but the concept of the creative process.
What is this? What is this?
My black box, number one.
Black
For Alice in Wonderland, right?
This is Alice in Wonderland?
Yeah, since Alice is in 20 scenes total, 20 different sets. It's all basically vignettes. So it seats, in this configuration, about 800. In the round, it will seat 1,000, because you have seats on this side, and there's a duplicate section over here. These vomitoriums are closed off, and this is the ground level.
Yeah.
So the rest is all below, so people would come in. So it isn't really that large. It's just mostly underground. And the superstructure will be built.
I think I have educated my students in standards of presentation, in ways of thinking about design, in well, in elements of creativity. I have always stressed the need for curiosity, to investigate everything, to ask questions, to look at everything, to keep files, to develop a library, to use the library to stimulate you into thinking, into discoveries, out of the cliches.
Lifted one hard pillow.
You know, so that there's a checkerboard rug or something like that there, or the grass is done in squares of sod or lines. So I think you have to get your students, the people who are listening to you, to become enthusiastic about doing something once, experimenting, and perhaps taking on the techniques that they've learned, but not simply repeating the procedure, repeating the format, repeating the forms that they've created. That each time you do something so that it will be a new experience for you, and it will be a new experience for the audience.
His office in the drama department has been an example of the wealth of Mason's own imagination. Among the hundreds of books and assorted theatrical paraphernalia is a most unusual wall.
Many years ago, I don't know, 30, 35 years ago, when I was first interested in design, I found some of these wires. Some of them are champagne corks, and some are package ties, and some are coils of wires that have become unglued. All of them have been shaped by nature, by accident, by events, by cars rolling over them, by weather, and so on. The idea is to present something provocative to the students who come into the office, and they ask, well, what are these things? I've never seen any of them, they say. Where do you get them? How do you make them? And they're always surprised to find out that they are accidental, they are ubiquitous. You can find them out in the parking lot, you can find them at construction sites. The point is for them to look for them and to see them and to respond to them.
In the 22 years that he has lived and worked in Honolulu, Richard Mason has designed more than 100 productions for theater, ballet, and opera companies here and on the mainland. He is now retired. His last production for the U.H. Kennedy Theater was Right You Are If You Think You Are by Luigi Pirandello.
It's more or less my valedictory. It's not quite a realistic interior. We want to suggest that the theatricality and the ambiguousness of the theatrical world. Is it real? Is it not real? When is it real? And so I've made a set that is basically transparent.
Mason has left behind a legacy of students and productions, but he takes with him to his new home in New York his love for the stage.
I think the theater will always play a part in my life, certainly vicariously, that is to say, going to see productions, and I think from time to time as a continuing designer. But we shall see.
The Hawaii Ecumenical Chorale, now in its 5th season, gathers together at St. Teresa's Church to rehearse their performance for a celebration commemorating the 300th birthday of composer Johann Sebastian Bach. Its volunteer members are drawn from the local community. Its stated purpose is to assemble a group of singers who wish to learn and present choral music of a more challenging caliber than the average choir affords. One of the directors of the Hawaii Ecumenical Chorale is Eileen Lum. She personally auditions every member of her choir.
But I find that a lot of our Hawaiian people, Hawaiian meaning ethnic and Hawaiian meaning those of us who live in Hawaii, have very good ears. So once they hear a melody, they've got it, which is very exciting to me.
Of a broad musical background, Eileen Lum first discovered the appeal of song in her childhood home.
I have 2 brothers, but there was always singing in the family, and on pitch, which I'm so lucky. My father whistled, my mother sang, just very simply, and always on pitch, and I'm so grateful for that.
During a musical retreat in Berkshire, Massachusetts, she discovered the conducting abilities of Dr. Richard Westenberg. She invited him to Hawaii to guest conduct her choir.
But I was so impressed that he never got angry. When I joined the choir, I think to myself, you stupid sopranos. I'm thinking inside, and I'm biting my tongue. I've had so many bloody tongues. And he never got angry. He explained so clearly. I said, oh, what am I doing with my choirs?
And that yawn is like a giant sea monster, you know, it's my heart on some little helpless piece of music. Right? So don't do that. Really make a lot. Some conductors like to beat up on singers, you know. That's their stock in trade. They feel that if they have tantrums and if they are mean and nasty and point fingers and say you didn't do that, that is what they do. I am just not constituted that way as a person. So I'm not saying that I try to mollify everybody. It's that I don't try, unquote, to do anything except be myself and be as demanding as I can be. And with a choir like this, one can be quite demanding. Wherever you go within any of the 50 states or any of the countries of Europe or the Orient, singing is the most natural thing that there is to do musically. Someone said that every instrument makes some nod to imitating the human voice when it is designed. If you listen to a violin teacher or a flute teacher or a piano teacher or anything telling their students how to play and they have a melody, you will hear them say, play in a singing way. Cantabile is an Italian word which means in a singing way, but it's used for instrumental music as well. And it's slow, it's dragging, and it's not right.
Dr. Westenberg especially wishes to clear up erroneous notions of the conductor's role.
Many people think that the job of a conductor is to keep time. That's fair to say. So anybody that may be listening who thinks that can divest themselves of that thought immediately. What a conductor really has to do first and foremost is have and convey a concept of the music that is strong, and as I always say to the choir and to the orchestra, leaves no doubt as to what are the high points, what are the expressive possibilities, the peaks, the valleys, the loud places, the soft, the fast, the slow, and so forth, and have an understanding which brings these things into a relationship that then will add up to something. You do in time with music what a painter or a sculptor does in space with his or her art.
The evening of the performance is devoted to the music of Bach. Leonard Bernstein once remarked that once you have learned to love the music of Bach, you will love Bach more than any other composer.
Oh, I love Bach. When I was small, I used to wonder, why wasn't he declared the eighth wonder of the world?
Dr. Westenberg believes that Bach's Magnificat in D major presents a challenge to any choir.
Oh, yes. Although, you know something, it's not so challenging for the listener. It's very direct. It's not unlike Handel's Messiah.